yesterday I made this incredible Italian yeasted bread, and it's just so soft, and I was able to bake it in a pan. I didn't do 2 rises. I literally mixed it in the mixer, shaped it up, put it in the pan, and when the oven was up to temperature, we baked it. And it turned out so amazing. But I would like a sourdough version of that. I'm gonna scoop a little bit of this flour that hasn't been wet yet, 30 grams. I usually do somewhere in the 25-30 gram range for a loaf of bread. Doesn't matter that much. What does matter is you want twice the amount of flour in boiling water. Okay? We're just gonna mix it up into a paste. It doesn't have to be hard. This is all really old stuff. It's all stuff they did way back then that we just didn't know about. So I'm not making anything up that's new. I'm just using what I learned from history to make our lives easier, because we like really delicious bread. So you see how this is like a hot porridge. This will work. Now it's very hot, and so I didn't put my sourdough starter in yet because I want it to mix first with the liquid that I poured into the bowl. The liquid from the bread recipe, that's gonna cool this down almost immediately, so that when I put my starter in, we don't kill it. We'll just give it a little stir here so it cools down. We need salt and starter. I use sea salt. Use what's in your price range. If you have table salt, go for it. All right, and then we're gonna add some starter. So how much starter would we add to our recipe? Well, 10%, I would say, with this strong of a starter. So that'd be about 40 grams. 40. What really helps keep your bread a little bit more flexible is vitamin C. And so you could use pure ascorbic acid, unbuffered vitamin C, okay? This will last a really long time. 1/8 of a teaspoon is all you need. More is not better. Or I could do about 8 or 9 grams, 10 grams of lemon juice or any kind of citrus juice. So if you don't like lemons, use orange. Squeeze an orange. If you like grapefruit, squeeze a grapefruit. If you like lime, put in lime. The interesting part though is that the flavor doesn't really transfer to the bread. It's such a small amount that it's not going to make much of a difference. Vitamin C was in the yeast stock from the 1800s bread recipes. And I know we're not making a yeast bread, but the vitamin C part makes enough of a difference that I just won't leave it out. Now we're gonna mix our dough on the mixer. You can do it by hand if you want to. I don't want to. I don't have a lot of time to waste, so we won't. And here we are, 4 minutes and 50 seconds in, and I could hear the flop, flop, flop of the bread. The dough has cleaned the bowl, and that means it's ready for the next step. Love about this mixer. No mixer, and like I said, I bought them all, does a better job kneading the dough than this one does. And so there's my dough. I think I've made sourdough before, and I did like a long rise in the bowl, and we did the stretch and folds and the coil folds and all that kind of stuff. But today we're gonna skip that, and I'm gonna show you literally the easiest, most practical way to make sourdough bread, because that's my jam, and maybe it's yours. We're going to do what's called dough lamination. Wet or oil our board. I like to oil the board because it keeps it nice. We're gonna dump out this dough. Here it comes. Isn't that great? We're gonna work with some wet hands. Why do we use water? Because we don't want the dough to stick to our hands. And so we wanna get some strength in this dough. If you need to use a bench scraper, you can. We're gonna stretch this dough out, all right? Look at that stretch. Can you believe this is whole grain? Because sometimes I can't. And then we're just gonna fold it over on itself. Look at the bubbles. Okay, playing with this dough is by far my favorite thing to do. And so we'll stretch that over, and we'll stretch this over on itself. Boom. Let's wet our hands again. Don't you just love to do this stuff? This is fun and relaxing for me. Like, okay. We'll stretch this side out. You see how much elasticity and strength is in there? Like, why would you want to do it any other way? We'll go like that, and we'll go like that. So we've just created a lot of layers, and then we can roll up our dough and give it some pulls. And a dough scraper helps for that. Okay, there. Can you believe it? Just like that. We can pinch the ends and pull them under, get a nice taut skin. This part's gonna be really important if you're doing the super quick, easiest way to make bread method. That's what I'll call it. Super quick, easiest sourdough bread recipe you could ever make. Here it is. Now, we're gonna wanna let this go through the bulk fermentation and the rise and all that other stuff. We're gonna let this basically rise until it looks nice and jiggly and it's doubled in size, and then we're gonna stick it in the oven and bake it. Like I said, it can't get any easier than this. If you're gonna use cast iron, I gotta say these Lodge, they come in a set of 2, are really great for baking your bread. Just make sure it's well greased, and if you're doing this method, I would also line with parchment paper. I'm just gonna wet and crumple it. I don't remember where I saw this, but it's genius. And then open it up, and now it's like ready to put in the pan. We can just set it in the pan, and then bloop. You might have to use your bench scraper so the dough doesn't stick. And we're just going to plop it in there. And we have like nice bubbles in here already because of our lamination, and it will fill out the pan, right? The other thing we're gonna wanna do is cover this so that it doesn't dry out. And I love shower caps for this. I am not worried about the plastic when I'm doing this because it's not gonna actually touch the dough. And sourdough is known to pretty much eat through different things. So that's definitely one I don't want plastic touching. So I'm just gonna let it sit here just like that and ferment till it rises and it's all ready. It's gonna take a long time, like hours and hours, maybe 12. Here we are about 12 hours later. You can see that our dough has risen almost to the top of the pan. And I don't know if you can see that it's a little jiggly, and we got nice bubbles in our dough. I have preheated my oven 475, and I'm going to put some water in there. I'm gonna give this a good spray. If you want to score your bread, now would be the time. I can just do one swift slice here. Now this dough is not gonna have a lot of structure to it because we didn't go doing all the coil folds and shaping after it's bubbled, and that's okay. So then we're gonna clean up the edges here to our parchment and put another pan on top. And what happens is this other pan acts like a Dutch oven. It's gonna keep all the steam that evaporates during the bake in there, so we get a nice rise. That's what I like about the 2 Lodge pans together, is that they make this gorgeous Dutch oven for a loaf of bread. We're gonna pop this in the oven, lower the temperature to 450, bake for 30 minutes. And then we're gonna drop the temperature to 400, remove the top pan, and bake until we have our desired crust, which is usually about another 15 to 20 minutes. Good morning. Our sourdough, super easy, no fuss, no shaping bread. It's just come out of the oven. It is hot. So this was about 12 hours in the pan, and I baked it the same way that we did our other loaf. It's hot. Oh, I like a crusty crust, so if you don't, bake for a little less time here, okay? But I love a nice golden crust where all the flavor is, especially in our sourdough, okay? Rose up just above the pan. You can still get a good loaf of sourdough, even if you do none of the other shaping coil folds and all that complicated stuff. Just mix it in your mixer, shape it up into a ball, put it in your pan, bake it when it's ready. Is it gonna be better if you do all those different techniques? Sure, but not by a whole lot. So if you really don't have the time and you want good bread and you need it to be sourdough, this is a great way to do it. I'm back. Our loaf has cooled and it is nice and soft, a little crispy on the outside. We've got nice crust. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, I love that. Okay, here we go. Beautiful. We've got a nice flexible bread that is yet strong enough to put some butter or whatever on it, and it's gonna taste amazing toasted. I like my crust crusty, and I like my toast toasty, extra toasty. All the flavor is in the crust. Can you believe we didn't have to do anything major to get a nice loaf like this? It's a 1 pound loaf, a nice little loaf. If you want to make a bigger one, you could do a 9x5 or 450 grams of flour. That'll give you the next size up. All right, the ultimate test is with the butter. Even using a starter that had been neglected for days, had the alcohol on top, this bread is good. It's not too sour. In fact, I can't even taste the sour, which is awesome if you don't like a super sour sourdough bread. Now, just to be sure, I'm gonna slice one of these untoasted. And I love this bread because I can get it sliced nice and thin. And a little bit of butter here. Oh yeah, oh yeah. The slightest hint of sour. So using a very strong starter that has been fermenting for days, right? A hungry one, using 10% of the flour worked very well. Give this a try.